What's going on, guys? It's a 17-year-old on YouTube here, and I want to try something that I've never really done before. I want to tackle my hands at film reviewing. So I've done game reviewing before. When I reviewed Super Mario Bros. Wonder a couple of weeks back, and now I want to try reviewing movies in a series that I would like to call YOYT reviews, which is an acronym for Year Old on YouTube Reviews. Since I can't really have it be like 17-year-old on YouTube reviews because eventually that's gonna get like outdated. I'm gonna have to update it every single year. So just having it be year old on YouTube reviews will it'll give it longevity. So the first film I want to do to test these waters is talk about Hayao Miyazaki's latest film, The Boy and the Heron, which came out a couple weeks ago, and I watched this movie a week ago, last Saturday. It was the first time I've ever watched a Ghibli film in theaters, so that was a pretty unique experience for me. And I have a lot to say about this video, so this is going to be spoiler free. I should also mention that there won't be any spoilers if you haven't watched the movie yet. I want you to go as blind into this movie as I went going into it. Miyazaki had there be no advertising before the film was released in Japan. It was only until once it was released in Japan that they started doing all the advertising in North America and all that. But I didn't watch like any of the trailers. I only looked at a couple of screenshots, but still, I basically went in completely knowledgeless on what the film was actually going to be about. So I want you guys to go into this movie as blindly as I went in going into it. So with that out of the way, I'm just going to get right into it. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't like calling this movie The Boy and the Heron because it feels like a kind of misleading name. Like you're expecting a movie that isn't exactly like complex like other Ghibli movies are. You're expecting it to probably be a bit more laid back compared to a title like How Do You Live, which I feel better reflects what the movie itself is communicating and just the overall vibe of the movie in general. It's a very confusing experience. Honestly, this is a hard ass film to review because I don't know what the hell to make of it. It is just overwhelming what this movie throws at you. And I just want you to understand that before you go into it, that it is going to be a confusing experience from beginning to end. So, on to the movie itself. I watched this one in the English dub version. You know, the one with Robert Pattinson, Mark Hamill, fucking Christian Bale. And honestly, it was just kind of like it's still find it kind of crazy that these big name actors would actually be in a movie like this. Despite the fact that big name actors have always been in English dubs of Ghibli films. Anyway, so the movie's about a young boy named Mahito. And I'm not gonna tell you why, but basically he goes off to his aunt's house where he is being adopted, and he is pulled into an adventure with a gray heron. It's called a gray heron, but the heron itself is literally the color blue. So I always get thrown off when they call it the gray heron. And Robert Pattinson's voice as the gray heron, it is, I can't believe that he could actually make that voice. Like, you could genuinely think that was like Willem Dafoe doing that voice, and he's in the movie. He's just not the Heron. That's Robert Pattinson. So in this movie, Mahito just kind of goes on a typical Miyazaki journey where he's in this just like insane world with all these amazing cutesy looking creatures. There's these little white balls. I don't remember what they're called, but basically they're sort of like the Soul people from Soul, Pixar Soul, where they instead of going down to Earth, they sort of like ascend from this, I don't know, like world of creation where they become like the bodies of where they end up becoming into like the bodies of humans and stuff like that. But then the pelicans they eat them, and then we find out that the reason why the pelicans eat them is because they need to eat them to survive. And I don't know, man. It doesn't need to be that deep, but it's that deep, and I don't mind it. I'm gonna be like completely honest with you guys. I don't even really want to talk that much about the movie itself because it's just so complicated, and it's hard to mention anything without getting into spoilers. So I just want to talk about some more like actual filmmaking aspects I like about the movie. My biggest point being the animation. Like, dude, if you looking at this, it's just, I miss this Ghibli, man. I miss this Ghibli. The 2D cell animation, those beautiful backgrounds, man. Like the backgrounds in this, they are so beautifully painted, and it makes me kind of like emotional because you see all those interviews that Miyazaki did, how much he resents AI art, how much he hears like the future of animation with the rise of AI. So to see just something this genuinely handcrafted, and Miyazaki is a master at his craft. So to see something this beautiful, like animated on screen, on like a movie screen in a theater, it just didn't feel real. Like in like an industry where it's all 3D films, to see a 2D film that looked and felt like this, it was just unreal. Especially considering that this is the first Ghibli film since 2014. They did not release any films in 2020. If you try to convince me that they released any films in 2020, I'm just gonna say that you're flat out lying. They absolutely did not. Joking aside, another aspect I like about the film is that Joe Hisashi brings his A game once again. We all know that he's a musical genius, so honestly, this may be my favorite score of the entire year in terms of movies. And like, I'm not really surprised from Joe Hisashi. Every single movie that he scores is just brilliant, man. It's just crazy how he can elevate the feeling of the movies that Miyazaki makes and Ghibli makes. He is as integral to Ghibli as Miyazaki and as Takahata was when he was still alive. So see him bringing his A game again, just great. And like, ultimately, I feel like the main message that this film was trying to convey, it's sort of like linked to the original name of the movie, How Do You Live? We see Mahito sort of go through this inner crisis on his current life. Like, he is having a hard time moving on from what he had experienced in the past, which I will not spoil for you. But basically, he's just like having a hard time moving on from past experiences, and he's having a hard time living in the now. And ultimately, I feel like one of the film's biggest messages is just trying to be able to live your current life. And it does this by giving us such an incredible dream world with just these insane creatures. And once again, it's hard to remember all this stuff because I watched it a week ago, and it's just a kind of a confusing movie to remember every single aspect of. But honestly, I'm just not going to keep on going on about this. This was a fantastic film. It had amazing animation. It had a strong message. And while the story was convoluted as hell and I can't really explain it all, it's definitely something that you need to see to believe. I'm sure you'll find the characters endearing when you watch it, and if you don't, then I guess this just isn't your movie. It is a Miyazaki movie to the core. If you've seen Miyazaki's past films, you will not be surprised that this is a lot like the likes of Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle. I wouldn't say this is probably in my top 5 Ghibli films. I've only watched like 10 or 11 of them. I'd say, like, out of all the ones I've watched, I'd probably put this right under Grave of the Fireflies. There's absolutely no denying that this is an incredible film, but I'm gonna be taking some time to, decide if whether this is in my top 30, like, animated films of all time or not. But, yeah, this is definitely up there as one of the best animated films I've ever seen. It was an absolutely magical experience from beginning to end, and it left me with an impactful message about living your current life and being able to leave the traumas of the past or the struggles of the past behind you. That's how you live. And I'm still so triggered by the fact that I have to call this The Boy and the Heron, because How Do You Live? It fits what Miyazaki wanted to tell in this story. It fits the vibe of the film itself, and it fits the message that's trying to convey. But, so yeah, I highly recommend that you watch this movie. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And I don't know how much longer it's going to be in theaters, because I know that anime films don't really last that long in theaters. I shouldn't even call this an anime film, because Miyazaki doesn't think of his works as anime. But for a Japanese film, they don't usually have long releases, so go watch it while you can. And that will pretty much bring a wrap to my first ever film review on this channel. If you want me to do more stuff like this, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and peace out.